Standing in a chamber looked to be a communal shower, but was actually meant to be a trick of your last moments of life. Hanging by a final thread, seeing women, children, and men starve to the point of only being skin and bones. The fear creeping inside as the gas was released. This was towards the end of the T4 extermination of people with disabilities in 1930s Germany. This was a true crime, in my personal opinion.
In Germany, the start of the war marked a change in policy towards the mentally sick and handicapped. Hitler himself signed the secret order to start putting them to death. Reinhard Spitzi had heard him give his reasons.
And he said, why should we spend money for a fool, for a hopeless, ill person, if I can do with the same money so much good for a poor peasant's kid?
The decision brought the reality of racial policy home to countless ordinary families with a sick relative.
Meine Mutter ist in December
1931, my mother had been sent to the clinic for nervous diseases in Frankfurt am Main because of depression and anxiety about her husband.
Marie Rau's mother was eventually diagnosed as an incurable schizophrenic. Without her family's knowledge, she was brought to the Hadamar Psychiatric Clinic, which became a center for killing the mentally disabled. They were led to the cellar and killed with carbon monoxide gas, up to 60 at a time, over 10,000 in Hadamar alone. Next door was a crude operating slab where brains and organs were removed for scientific research. The Raus were told their mother had died of complications from warts on her lip. They only learned the truth years later.
The fact that these people were murdered is a disgrace for our whole society.
Some Germans dared to protest publicly against the euthanasia. The gassing was stopped, but killing by injection and starvation continued secretly.
Thanks so much for being here. If you made it through that description of what I will be covering today, if you're new to the channel, let me say it in sign language, Jessi, stories, aka Jessi. You can see me on Netflix Escaping Twin Flames, where I myself am in an ongoing true crime case with Twin Flames universe currently being investigated for illegal activity. This is what helped inspire the cases I will be covering on this channel. I feel there's enough coverage on those with disabilities who are wrongfully murdered, in my personal opinion, or wrongfully not seen for the person they are. But let me continue. So I cover all things disabilities and do my podcast on Unheard Voices of other minorities such as LGBTQIA+, cult survivors, and behind the scenes looks of docu-series and documentaries. It's about perspective and educating on coercive control, better known as brainwashing, and how it came to be. This is based off of my research and personal opinion. Sources will be posted in the description below, but if I forget to post it in the description below, I will pin it in the comment section. All right. To explore for yourself, well, this will allow you, if you choose to explore for yourself and learn about T4. Before we get back to it, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend or a frenemy or an enemy or someone you just know that would like this channel. It helps to support the channel and it helps get the education out there and word out there. So thanks so much for being here. All right, so now let's get back to going over more of T4, all the way back to the groundwork in 1883 with eugenics. Imagine a euthanization, aka alive against your will, just for existing and being born looking and acting different from everyone else. Not only are you not accepted by society as a disabled person, but being unalived due to that fact. The standard that had been set by the United States and Germany euthanization program began in 1930s Germany under the guise of cleansing the community in Germany as a whole. And I just want to go a little backwards. The United States was the first. I'll go over the time stamps soon on that. but United States did it first. Then came Germany in 1939 to be exact, as a whole. So the Geist of cleansing. So Germany did this as a Geist of cleansing the community and Germany as a whole of unfit people by ridding the earth of disabled children and adults. Now the groundwork of this began in 1883 by British scholar Francis Galton, who coined the term eugenics, meaning science of improving stock, or put it simple terms, only the strongest and fittest survive. And the rest do not. Before Hitler, the United States, here comes the part I was talking about, the United States had forced sterilization between 1907 and 1939. More than 30,000 people in 29 states were unalived against their will. More than half the operations out of California. This was a time period of strong coercive control, eliminating autonomy as a whole. So coercive control is pretty much you have no choice. It might look like choice. That's the sneaky part of coercive control, is it looks like choice, but it's really not your choice. I know my personal experience from being a cult survivor. You can check out more of that content on this channel too. As a whole, the ones in the United States that were unalived against their will were in institutions for mentally ill or in prison. When I say coercion, that means they were not only convinced they didn't deserve to live, but were unalived against their will, in my personal opinion and research. This setting the groundwork with Hitler to begin T4, the sterilization of the mentally ill and disabled. I would have been one of the children sterilized if I lived in Germany in this time period, since I'm autistic with ADHD and PTSD and anxiety, but the first two are neurological disorders, and language didn't come first nature to me as a child, so having that, well, being behind in that would have led to my overdosing and or starvation during that time period. This is heartbreaking that it even had to exist, and in 2025 still going through some of those same lessons again. Between the years 1939 and 1945, at least 200,000 and 250,000 people with disabilities were eliminated against their will, known as T4. The name comes from the place where it all started, which is Theresiengasse 4. So it was in Berlin in a house in Theresiengasse 4. The street name is, I guess, Theresiengasse, and then 4, the number, something like that. I don't know fully because I don't know how Germany does their streets and everything. But this is August of 1939. A lead doctor in cleansing process was Dr. Heinz, a child psychologist interested in children with neurological disorders. While Hitler set the stage for phase 1 sterilization by making community exist like an organism, and anyone who wasn't fit or working as everyone else did was considered a virus. That's when those with disabilities began getting propaganda from psych wards and doctors breaking the rules of care for their patients by filming them for Hitler's propaganda to frighten German people by showing those who were physically deformed or just didn't look like what normal was supposed to look like. I still don't know what that looks like. Apparently, I'm normal looking to society standards, which is stupid in my personal opinion. Anyway, and this propaganda was shown to Germany as a whole, and disabilities people were looked at as monsters, as people that were infecting communities, infecting Germany as a whole, and not keeping them strong and fit, and eugenics, keeping them to a standard, which the standard gradually got worse and worse as time went on with Hitler. Oh, and one of my sources, I did write her down. So this comes, Dr. Heinz, and some of the stuff that I wrote down comes from a doctor, and for a doctor a doctor under Nazism. I will leave the link. Again, if I forget, I'll leave the link in either the comment section or the actual description itself, depending on if I remember. We will see. Public opinion turned against those with disabilities, so began phase 1, sterilization of communities, known as the purification, starting in 1937, where doctors began slowly go against their Hippocratic's, I don't know the word, oath of no harm to patients. Hitler was trying to legally unalive innocent disabled humans. By spring of 1939, mentally and physically disabled children and adults were to be eliminated by a group of physicians, the chosen for the euthanization. So there were 17 of them. I didn't write down all their names because most of these German names were hard for me. And I am in fact reading off a script because I wanted to give you guys the information correctly. But this was phase 1. So they're going against us. 17. They met somewhere I believe they met in Theresienstadt for Berlin to figure out ways they could eliminate those who were disabled. But here's the next heartbreaking part. The euthanization program, they talked about injection by first putting their patients to sleep and then overdosing them and killing them with a drug that would unalive them. There were doctors unaliving their own patients starting in 1939 under Hitler's command. The first for this method were disabled children of either an overdose of drugs or starvation. No in between. This began September of 1939. In order for this beginning steps to happen, they followed a 3-question criteria, which might sound similar to stuff of today, but with those who are migrants. Anyway, first one is, are they able to work? 2 and 3 are, what extent and how often can they work? This is all before the Holocaust. This would become the blueprint for the gassing chambers of what came next. By 1940, they had 4 facilities to start. Well, these are the gassing chambers, the 4 facilities they started with in 1940. So this is after a year of doing overdosing of children, because this is when adults and children at the same time come in. Kind of the scene I began this tough subject with. So each facility, and I apologize, I'm probably going to read all German words wrong because even though I have German in me, I can't pronounce well. So I apologize. Brandenburg, Peinsunona, Bernburg, and Grafenegg. Those are the first 4 facilities of gassing chambers that looked like showers as a means so they could do it. A year later, they would open a few more facilities in order to live more faster and efficiently, as per Hitler's orders, in Grafenegg, Hertham, and Hindemar. And I'm going to show you guys a picture of the body counts that they kept track of. I took a picture from the documentary that I watched. Even though it was about a doctor, I didn't want to highlight the horrible things he did. I wanted to highlight the important people that lost their lives, that we don't have all the data or names of all the people that died innocently and were murdered, in my personal opinion, against their will. But I'll leave it up here for a little bit for you guys to check it out, and I'll probably repost it soon. And if you look at the very bottom of it, it shows the total bodies. This is not including the year before of unaliving and overdosing children of disabilities, but 70,273 bodies accounted for in gassing chambers before the Holocaust itself. And this also doesn't include the doctors that began the process in 1937 before fully legally doing it in 1939, starting with children. These individuals were sent to these facilities coercively, in my personal opinion, to be unalived. Hitler, by August 24th of 1941, called the T4 project to a halt for the sake of the public pressure. Became too much for his image, for his image. He had priests and a lot of religious figures condemning what he was doing. Kind of similar of today. If you think about it, who else has been condemned by religious leaders, very powerful religious leaders? And has this individual stopped? I think not. Anyway, the comparison is so hard not to bring up as I do this. But again, keep that in mind. 1901 to 1939, United States was the first to do at least the overdosing killing. I didn't look into that one fully. I'm going to later in time, but let me continue. Okay. So they didn't actually follow those orders because Hitler didn't actually want it to stop. So instead, they hired an accountant to treat the unaliving in the gas chambers like a business. And it was a very profitable business. Their family members would pay and they would leave. Yeah, so family members would pay, they'd leave. And I have a video that we're going to play for you guys to watch. Second part. Let's hear from a family that lost one of 14 children. So there was only 13 after that because one was disabled.
Who would have thought in 1933 that handicapped people, ill people, would be murdered? This never occurred to anyone. It was beyond all imagination. I can remember that Irma, unlike my other younger siblings, developed late. She learned to walk late, She always had to be carried around and be fed. She was a pretty child, such a pretty child, with big, dark brown eyes. The sad thing is, at some point Irma disappeared from my family's memory. My mother, with so many children, always sick, just couldn't take care of Irma. My father must have visited her in the beginning. The next time I heard about Irma was in 1945. My father told me that Irma apparently died in Vienna. Irma had arrived in this children's ward with 13 other children. The youngest was probably 3, and Irma was the oldest at 13. There they were subjected to illegal human medical experiments. Apparently the children, the victims, were horribly starved, reduced to mere skeletons. In the end, most of them died of exhaustion and hunger and doses of medicines, or they were given a lethal injection. A worthless life. That's what they called it. Worthless life. That was the official term.
Their loved ones would be sent on what was later known as the death bus, since those that were taken away never came back. Some people with disabilities knew that what was coming when the death bus came around. The story of Irma is haunting, and it's sad she disappeared so quickly, but this was a time period of deep hatred towards people with disabilities. Finally, Brandenburg in 1940, due to complaints of smell of burning flesh from the facilities and hair molecules of dead floating in the streets of Brandenburg. It wasn't so. The first shutdown was Brandenburg, which was one of the first 4 facilities to open in 1939. So it only lasted a year, which is interesting. No, in 1940. So they didn't make it a full year. Anyways, it wasn't until 1945 that all the facilities shut down, and some of the same doctors that worked on T4 went to work on the Holocaust with experience of unaliving innocent people. Thanks if you made it this far. Autonomy is important, as in the past, those with disabilities were silenced and taken against their will, just for being them, from silent voices. So before I go and end this, autonomy is so important. So your choice, your voice matters. Everything, it doesn't matter your status in society, honestly. Being disabled, I'm disabled adults. I don't come off that way. I'm cognitively slow. So that's why I also have a cheat sheet, and I'm trying to get better and better to give you guys more of a professional looking. So it might not ever be fully to that extent, but thank you for being here. Just know your voice matters, and no matter what's happening in the world, change can happen. Change is powerful, and you can make a change in the world, even if it doesn't feel like it, even if it feels like the whole world's collapsing on top of you. People had to learn back in this time period in 1939 how important it is that people with differences exist, to teach us how to better ourselves as society and accept them fully into society, and not go based off a eugenics that we still go off of, a eugenics idea of what is normal and what is not. From silent voices to shining lights, stories that inspire awareness and change. Until next week. Peace. Okay. Bye, everyone.